So it is the most joyous time of year, one of the most joyous times of year for us as Americans, as Catholics, and just people who are of a good nature. And to have the beginning of 2025 begin in such a heavy way, which we would absolutely agree with. It's a heavy day on the first day of 2025. And this is the Rick Cast. I am your host, Rick Barrett, and I appreciate you all stopping in and stopping by. Thank you so much. Like, subscribe, share, hit the follow button if this is your first time on my X account or Twitter account or whatever you want to call it. And the joke is this time of year, if you're just joining us, that this time of year is very quiet and you have to scrape the bottom of the barrel to actually talk about things, to fill an hour's worth of time. And we do not have any problem today with that. We have fellow Americans who have been injured and killed on a holy day of obligation for us Catholics, and a day where the emphasis is being with family and friends. And so we are we're broadcasting on X, Instagram, Twitter, Rumble, and YouTube. So good evening to the YouTube crowd, to the Twitter crowd, to the Rumble crowd, and to the Instagram folks. Hope you guys are having a good night, and I hope you are enjoying the time that you have with your families, because days like today really reinforce how precious that time really is. And we're going to go through it today. We're going to talk about the incident in New Orleans. We're going to talk about the incident in Las Vegas. I am going to talk about Trump backing the H1Bs, because I actually do think, in a weird way, I think it's connected to all of this, or it's connected to what happened in Vegas a little bit, and I'll explain that. I do have one more thing. It says the box office preview. If we have time for that in this hour, we will. But I'm not going to force the issue on that, because the most important thing is to talk about the live news that's taking place right now. Happy New Year, Lou. Yep. And for Catholics, it's a tough thing when you hear about something happening at 3 a.m. in the morning. And I'll just say it right now, the coordinated attack that's taken place in New Orleans, in the Crescent City, the cradle of Catholicism, do not overlook that on a holy day of obligation. Now, for non-Catholics, you guys are probably going, "Oh, what are you talking about?" Everything has a meaning, and the Muslims have been at war with Catholics since before the Crusades. So understand that it's never over for them. And you're looking at a fact that you had our brothers and sisters, fallen away Catholics, non-baptized Catholics, out doing things that we've all done. This is not me being, fire and brimstone with them. We've all done those things. Lord knows I have. But being taken in such a violent, brutal, and sudden manner is something that it really makes you reflect on your mortality and what's going on here. And the developing situation, because we have things that are going on in Houston right now that are connected to what happened in New Orleans. Meanwhile, we have the issue that happened in Vegas, and all of this makes people question, is 2025 going to be the year that preppers and people that have been screaming about illegal immigration, even though he was a legal immigrant, the gentleman who committed this heinous act, even though he was, is this the year when we see the chickens coming home to roost, as far as letting so many people, and we've already started to see a little bit of it with the gangs, the Venezuelan gangs in Colorado and in Chicago, even in parts of Texas. But those were kind of pockets, and we were all kind of just holding fast. A lot of us saying, "Hey, man, we just got to wait until Trump gets in, and once he gets in, then the guy who's directing immigration, he's gonna come home, and we're good. We're getting after it. We're just gonna go get these guys and reclaim and make America great again." But now we're looking at the fact that there are coordinated, and who am I? I'm a guy on the internet. I got a master's in Homeland Security, but that's about as worth as much as the paper is printed on right now. So it is what it is in that regard. But could this be something that's coordinated? It could. I'm not going to go out on the limb and try to give you a definitive analysis on that, or I will make my case, and that's all it is. It will be a case, and I will present the issues and present the points of view that I see there. And so, Mark, it is something where you have an executive office right now, and the DOJ is under the executive office, that is just absent. And you're seeing how, in the absence of leadership, It could be a good Democratic one or a good, doesn't matter. This isn't because both of them have failed at multiple times. Both of them expanded the power of the state. But in the absence of leadership, of true, genuine leadership, how all of these things seem to have just fallen apart. And are we going to be waiting in the next couple of days for the famous FBI line? Well, we had this guy on our radar. Well, that's done a lot of good for the people that are in New Orleans right now. But I'm kind of just jumping around and talking about a bunch of different things. Let me give you the summary of what happened today up to this point, because there are things that have been coming pretty quickly as we speak. And I know there's supposed to be another briefing soon on the terror incident. I know President Joe Biden is supposed to be speaking from Camp David. Who knows what kind of cocktails they got on that guy to try to keep him awake, because it's 7 o'clock Eastern time. So who knows about that? But let me give you the situation as of right now. So in New Orleans this morning, still this morning, what is it? So 12, 15 hours ago? If my math is a little fuzzy, please correct me. That's fine if you do, because I was a social studies guy, not a math guy. So 3:10 in the morning. That's the time we're getting. A vehicle, it was a Ford F-150, one of the new ones, a Lightning, which I'll get to the importance of an electric vehicle both in New Orleans and in Las Vegas. Drove down in the French Quarter, killing, it looks like as of this time, 15 people and injuring countless others. The latest number I got was 30. If you have more up-to-date information than me, because this thing's moving along pretty quickly, drop it in the chat wherever you are on Instagram or Rumble or Twitter or YouTube. And I would, I am not above being like, okay, well, our latest number is this, because we're all pretty much sourcing each other at this point. So 15 dead, 30 wounded as of right now. Numbers always subject to change, especially when you have that many people in an intensive care unit going on with the type of injuries that have taken place over time. We could see that number go up. The Louisiana governor has declared a state of emergency. The suspect was identified as a 42-year-old Army veteran from Texas, born and raised here. Shamoud Din Jabbar is the gentleman's name. He has been identified as a suspect who intentionally rammed this pickup truck into a large crowd on Bourbon Street. Bourbon Street is the city that has been identified as, not the city, the street that has been identified as what was attacked at that time. So we have that. Investigators have seen video footage, supposedly, of 3 men and a woman helping at some point the attacker, and this gave rise to a lot of people saying, okay, this is a cell that has been activated. Who knows what's going on? Of course, as we've said, things have been moving pretty quickly. And the Wall Street Journal, or the New York Post, I'm sorry, this earlier today said the FBI was hunting this group of people, trying to find out what was going on, in case you want to go follow along with me on the blackboard, so you just don't look at my pretty face the whole time. So pipe bombs were found in the F-150. Pipe bombs were found in the F-150 that was used on Bourbon Street. And they were wired for a remote detonation. So this brings to mind, for those of you that remember, the Boston Marathon bombing, where there was multiple bombs on the street. Right? You had the first bomb that went off by the finish line, and then down a ways as people were moving, a second was supposed to go off as well, and it did, and so forth. That's how these things work in these types of attacks. So this was supposed to be the initial attack with the gentleman. I'm not going to show pictures or video, because I know there's a lot of people watching, and you can find them anywhere. And I don't know, I'm not going to be grisly and show these things. We're not going to show any deaths or anything, or any of the videos of any of that stuff. We're going to keep, if you want, you can watch that on your own time. We're not going to watch it on this program. But there are videos of the gentleman coming out and engaging in a firefight with the New Orleans Police Department, who was on, in the French Quarter at that time on New Year's Day. You got to give credit to the policeman that ran to it and engaged the suspect and neutralized the suspect as quickly as they did. So he was killed because he didn't die when he ran into a crane. It looks like he ran into a crane, which actually stopped him. Then he proceeded to get out of the vehicle, where he engaged in a firefight with the local police, who then neutralized the suspect. Then they were able to look in and they said, okay, there were pipe bombs. The man had an ID on him, and so forth. They say he had a Glock pistol and a .308 rifle. So law enforcement said there were 3 people we saw helping him put these IEDs in the vehicle. New York Post came out with that. About an hour ago, CNN says law enforcement has now determined that those people have nothing to do with the incident. I know a lot of people were saying, hey, man, there's FBI teams being flown into New Orleans and all these other things are going on. A lot of that stuff has not been proven or has not been verified yet. I'm only going to try and tell you as much as verified information as I can, because the internet is not good at, verifying facts. It's kind of just, especially in a race for the Elon bucks and monetization, people are going to be trying to fire out as much as they can to try and get as much attention. That's not my goal here. My goal is to try and bring you as much information as possible to at least give you an idea of what's going on. So the FBI investigators have uncovered writings by Mr. Din Jabbar that, along with the ISIS flag that was found in the vehicle, a lot of people said it was flying in the back of the vehicle, but the FBI has confirmed that there was an ISIS flag in the vehicle, that this was a terror attack. Now, we'll start getting some of these videos in here. This was the first video this morning. You're not going to watch all of these because these are available, but this was the mayor of the city of New Orleans this morning.
First of all, we do know that the city of New Orleans was impacted by a terrorist attack. It's all still under investigation. You'll hear more after me. However, I have been in direct contact with the White House, with Governor Landry, and of course a unified command who is present here. What I'm asking at this time are prayers for those who have lost their lives in the city of New Orleans due to this tragedy.
Last night, we had over 300 officers out here.
Yes, folks, I am actually, let us acknowledge the giant elephant in the room. This woman, I think she's 82 years old, former police chief of Oakland, California, where she was subsequently fired from. She ran over a couple people in August in New Orleans. And that's your acting police chief or commandant or whatever they call them in New Orleans, because they have a different way of naming things. So, you got to feel bad for the men and women that are serving under this person, because, I don't know.
Because of the nature and the indices that we have on the scene, and we have enough information that the FBI will be taking over this investigation.
All right, I'm not going to give them, it's pretty rough watching the rest of that. The FBI came out. I'm not going to play that one. They immediately said, oh, well, I guess it wasn't a terror attack, so we don't know. They have since walked that back and said it is being classified as a terror attack. Yeah, I guess so. Michael, I guess they are in short supply. But that is also a big conversation about quotas and people that need to be selected for the job. It kind of falls into that H1B conversation that was happening over Christmas, how the jobs are not being given out to people based on their talent and what they can do, but based on somebody outside of the system saying quotas needed to be filled. And that's always going to be a problem in that regard, having to try and fill quotas, because then you get people like this. And no offense, she's 82 years old. She shouldn't be in a police chief. Just like, Trump really shouldn't be president. He's 78. He was better than the other guy and the other lady. But we got to stop electing people who are, old enough to collect Social Security and everything else, who should be sitting on the front porch with their grandkids or their cats or whatever, and not in positions of authority or positions of leadership. It's just something that has to be discussed there. But you had that initial talk. So there was a terror. It was talked about in there. A big question that did come out, and I'll bring back the my blackboard here. I guess a little bit of Archbishop Fulton Sheen. I don't have them, but this is the closest thing I have. Big thing that people were talking about is what happened to the mechanical barriers. What happened to those? This is an active street. You see these things all over the place. These mechanical barriers that come up. So, you know, they can be the barrier that comes up. It's one solid piece, or it's 3 different columns. Where are these things? This is a major tourist area. So why don't we have the columns up to ensure that these things are protected, that these places are safe? Well, according to our police chief, they were not functioning. And it's a lackadaisical attitude. And it's an attitude that is rife within corrupt governments, that these things were not addressed. And we're gonna get them replaced before the Super Bowl in February. Well, folks, the Sugar Bowl, I think it's a Sugar Bowl, correct me if I'm wrong, between Notre Dame and Georgia, which is now being postponed to tomorrow night, which is fine. I think that's completely appropriate. Which has been, postponed to tomorrow night, is now is there. What about that? What about the fact that there was that? What about the fact that the French Quarter, despite the fact that I wouldn't go in there unless I had, the 101st Airborne Division with me, New Orleans is not a safe place. And that's not, redneck me being like, oh, I don't like cities. I don't. But New Orleans ranks as probably one of the worst cities. And I used to be on coaching staffs with guys when I was coaching football in Dallas. Guys from New Orleans were there. They had been relocated after Katrina, and they told me horror stories about New Orleans and the fact that police didn't go into certain areas. You guys were on your own if you went in there, and the crime that is rife within that city, which would only lead to something like this happening. Why do I say that? Because New Orleans, and like many major cities are right now, are understaffed with police because the good police have been run off. They were run off in COVID. And they've been run off because of these terrible leaders that have been forced into place because of whatever, diversity, equity, inclusion, whatever you want to call it. Call it whatever you want. It doesn't really bother me. I don't care. But they're not there. And so that's why the first thing she said, we had 300 officers. It doesn't matter because none of them can get in the way of a vehicle. And the thing that was supposed to deter, right, our cultural enrichment, if you look across Europe, just like with the Christmas market attack that took place just a week ago, there was another attack in Europe today. I didn't look too much into it, but there was another attack at another market today. And so you could say that the mechanical barriers are a result of cultural enrichment. Remember the Waukesha or Waukesha, nobody knows how to say it, especially me, up in Wisconsin. What was that, 2 years ago? So it's not like this is the first time a Christmas market or an event targeted around a gathering of people was a prime target for someone. Now, of course, your legacy media has been telling you that a truck drove into a crowd as if Optimus Prime rented the F-150 and drove it into a crowd full of people, because you don't hate the legacy media enough, and the fact that they are trying to cover as much of this as is. They really are, which is actually quite pathetic. Sugar Bowl, speaking of it, is the Sugar Bowl CEO, Jeff Hunley, announced that the game that was today will be postponed until tomorrow. Let me real quick with my Catholic brothers and sisters bring this point. So the attack took place at 3:10 a.m. At 6 a.m. in the French Quarter, officers found explosive devices near the cathedral in the French Quarter, the gorgeous cathedral that exists there. They discovered 2 devices and safely detonated both. Today, if you're not Catholic, today is the feast of the Solemnity of Mary, Mother of God. So it is a holy day of obligation for Catholics. They found this at 6 a.m. It sounds like the first mass would probably be, 7:30. If they had, I don't know the mass schedule. Definitely 10 o'clock. Later in the day, there would have been more, at least 2 or 3 opportunities. This attack had Catholics in the crosshairs. They didn't leave these bombs at a hotel. They didn't leave these devices at a restaurant. They didn't leave them at a tourist attraction. They left them specifically at a Catholic church. And this attack was targeted at a Catholic centered state. There's a lot of rich Catholicism in the state of Louisiana. It's called the cradle of Catholicism, right? That's why the fleur de lis, and I know people who are from New Orleans, please, if you know me, I'm not meaning to say that incorrectly, but all of these things mark Catholicism, and they were targeted by this man who was radicalized to Islam. And the fact of the matter is, Islam is not compatible with Catholicism because Islam is at war with Catholicism. So on the feast of the Solemnity of the Mother of God, there was an attack on a cathedral, even though the bombs didn't go off. They were there. There were 2 of them that were planted that were detonated safely. And you had this attack done on New Year's Day, not New Year's Eve. It didn't happen before midnight. It happened after. It happened during the day. These things, just like 9/11, there was significance to the date. All of these things have significance to them. And so that's something that needs to be thought about. Real quick, this gives rise, and my good friend, I don't know if she's watching, but if she is, the legend that is Miss Suzanne Sherman, has taught me and many other people the concept of you are your own first responder. Not just the idea of always having a concealed weapon on you, right? If you have the ability to, having a concealed pistol or, having a firearm in your truck, whatever the game, everybody wants to talk about this. But you also need to know how to do first aid. You also need to have tourniquets, and you have to have first aid supplies on you, because in that moment, you are the first responder. Because in that area, in that triage zone, and once again, you can watch the videos, you're not going to watch them here, but they exist. In that triage zone, people will need your assistance. Maybe it's a loved one. Maybe it's a stranger. Maybe it's yourself, and you have the ability to do it. But you need to take seriously. It's not hard. You can take CPR, or you can take first aid classes online with the Red Cross. They do them every day. It may not be great, but it at least introduces you into the idea of what to do with somebody who's in shock, what to do with, when you get a cut that's on your arm and it's bleeding profusely. How do you need to keep it above your heart so that way it goes slower and it helps slow the bleed. Just simple things like that in order to help your fellow neighbor, because you may not know that person, but once a truck drives through an area and attacks all of you, you're all on the same team now. And it is your job as a good citizen or a good neighbor to try and help as many of those people as you can. Now, can everybody do it? No, I'm not saying that that's possible. A lot of people are just going to freak out and run, and I get it. And that you're not any less brave for doing that. Okay, the human instinct is survival. I get it. Especially if you're a family man and you have your wife and kids around, your duty as that man or mother is get your kids out of there. And if it's a man, get your family out of there. I understand all that. But you also need to know how to treat CPR, or how to do CPR, how to do first aid. If you can, carry a firearm on you. Because once the man stepped out of the vehicle, the people that were around there were at the mercy of this guy. And we're seeing with the things that are happening in Houston right now, I don't have that up to date. I'm sure that's being updated as we speak, but they were targeting Mr. Din Jabbar's home, which is very close to a mosque. That's just an observation. That's not even me saying anything. It's just an observation. But the idea is that this was a planned attack And we'll talk about the Vegas one in a moment and how that connects to this. And at 3:48 Central Time today, the last bit of information I got was a large boom was heard in the French Quarter, and police were seen rushing to that area. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a press conference that was held tonight with the senator from Louisiana, Senator Kennedy, and other officials as well.
IEDs were also located in the French Quarter. As of now, 2 IEDs have been found and rendered safe. The FBI Special Agent Bomb Technicians, as well as our local law enforcement partners, have been working to determine if any of these devices are viable, and they will work to render those devices safe. The FBI, we are working with our partners to investigate this as an act of terrorism. We're aggressively running down all of the leads to identify the possible subject's associates. We're working to ensure that there is no further threat. We do not believe that Jabbar was solely responsible. We are aggressively running down every lead, including those of his known associates. That's why we need the public's help. We are asking if anybody has any interactions with Samsoud Dim Jabbar in the last 72 hours that you contact us. The FBI is asking the public's help. We're asking anyone who has information, video, or pictures to provide it to the FBI. We have set up a digital tip line as well as our 1-800 number, 1-800-CALL-FBI. Please provide us with any information that can assist us in this investigation.
All right, so that's a little bit of information there. People are talking about the fact that the purveyor of this terror was a former U.S. military member. That is correct. In fact, we have at least some photos that are floating around of the gentleman when he was in the military. This is I'm going to bring up Jim Laporta, his Twitter account, where he actually talks about this. Staff Sergeant Sunabin B. Jabbar's Information Technology Team Chief for the 82nd Airborne Division's 1st Brigade Combat Team. So there were incidences that took place that did not allow him to re-enlist. So there are questions. There are questions about what's going on. And this is the last bit of information we have. Somebody asked here, what's Kennedy doing there for the photo op? I mean, he is a politician. So you have that. Speaking of Kennedy, this is the last bit of information we have, at least for this first story, talking about what happened in New Orleans as of right now.
For not just people in Louisiana that are watching, but people coast to coast that are watching tonight, are you getting the sense that there's any threat of any other potential attacks tonight on any other major cities?
I can't answer that. I can, but I won't.
Is New Orleans?
That's awful. You can't do that, man. You can't say that. All that does is lead to fear. You can't do that right now. So we have that. Give me one moment, folks. It looks like Joe Biden just gave his full remarks. I'm going to bring that up while we finish this one with Kennedy.
Safe tonight.
Yes, but we're still in the process of tightening up security. We're still in the process of doing everything that we possibly can. The governor's called out the National Guard. We've got more FBI coming. We've got Homeland Security people. We've got state troopers who've done an awesome job. We've got the NOD. We're doing everything we can. But like I say, there's a lot of information out there. Some of it's accurate.
Okay.
Thanks for none of that being helpful at all. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this just in here on Rickcast. I am your host, Rick Barrett. Thank you for hanging out with me. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. If this is your first time here, I appreciate it. This was just concluded Joe Biden's remarks on what happened today.
I know I can speak for all Americans when I say our hearts are with the people of New Orleans after the despicable attack that occurred in the early morning hours. To all the families of those who were killed, to all those who were injured, to all the people of New Orleans who are grieving today, I want you to know I grieve with you. Our nation grieves with you. We're going to stand with you as you mourn and as you heal in the weeks to come. I want to thank our brave first responders and law enforcement personnel who stopped the attacker in his tracks before he could kill or injure even more people. And I want to thank you to everyone at the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, including the FBI, for working nonstop to investigate this heinous act. The FBI is leading the investigation to determine what happened, why it happened, whether there was any continuing threat to public safety. Here's what we know so far. To me, the killer was an American citizen, born in Texas. He served in the United States Army on active duty for many years. He also served in the Army Reserve until a few years ago. The FBI also reported to me that mere hours before the attack, he posted videos on social media indicating that he was inspired by ISIS, expressing a desire to kill,
So my question is, if the FBI and the DOJ in all of their glory were able to find grandma from an episode last, in 2020 on the Feast of the Epiphany, where they were tracking down grandmas and they were tracking down people who weren't even in Washington, D.C. and having Black Hawk helicopters fly all over the houses. This dude was on some sort of social media. By the way, Elon's banning people because they make fun of him. Nobody can find this guy. Nobody can find this guy. It's the same thing that I talk about when there are hundreds of videos with young men with Glock pistols with attachments that make them fully automatic. And the ATF can't seem to find any of these people, but yet they can find a guy in Southwest Oklahoma. This dude's on social media talking about how he wants to hurt people, and the FBI is like, yeah, no, we got you. Don't worry about it. Happy New Year.
The ISIS flag was found in his vehicle, which he rented to conduct this attack. Possible explosives were found in the vehicle as well, and more explosives were found nearby. The situation is very fluid, and the investigation has a preliminary stage. And the fact is that right now, there you go. The law enforcement and intelligence community.
To be fair, he has been on vacation for 7.5 weeks. So, I mean, this is the first time he's done any work.
Continue to look for any connections, associations, or co-conspirators. We have nothing additional to report at this time. The investigation is continuing to be active, and no one should jump to conclusions. I've directed my Attorney General, the FBI Director, the Secretary of Homeland Security, the head of the National Counterterrorism
All
Center.
these people who didn't do anything for the last 4 years, while 10 million visitors, let's call them, from different places all over the world have come to America, to the land of opportunity. These people they're on the case. Don't worry about it, folks. They're on the case and they're going to help you out.
And the intelligence community to work on this intensively until we have a full and complete information. And once we have that information, I will share that information as soon as we can confirm it.
Sure, buddy.
Additionally, we're tracking the explosion of a cyber truck outside the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. Law enforcement and the intelligence community are investigating this as well, including whether there's any possible connection with the attack in New Orleans. Thus far, there's nothing to report on that score at this time.
Oh, he's fading.
I directed my team to make sure every resource is made available to federal, state, and local law enforcement to complete the investigation in New Orleans quickly and to make sure there is no remaining threat to the American people. And we'll support the people of New Orleans as they begin the hard work of healing. New Orleans is a place unlike any other place in the world. It's a city full of charm and joy. So many people around the world love New Orleans because of its history, its culture, and above all, its people. So I know, while this person committed a terrible assault on the city, the spirit of our New Orleans will never, never, never be defeated. It always will shine.
Thanks, Joe.
We've seen that time and time again throughout its history. And I know we'll see it again in the days and weeks ahead. May God bless the people of
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Thanks. That's Joe Biden giving you an update of what's going on. Yeah, so apparently ISIS is like still here. They're like still around. So that's not great. Okay, this is Rick Cast. I'm your host, Rick. If you are following anywhere on YouTube or you're on Twitter or you're on Rumble or you're on whatever, like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell. And thank you for joining me. Thank you for choosing to hang out with me. I know there is a lot of really good people out there on social media doing a lot of great work. I know Valiant Renegade is doing a stream right now. I know there's some other guys doing some streams. So thank you for taking the time to hang out with me and allowing me to share what I feel is going on and the information that is taking place. So with that out of the way, let's get to this next story and how they are connected. So this is from Newsweek.com. Deadly Cybertruck explosion in front of the Trump Hotel. Now, before we get into any of this, both of these attacks, there's a couple things that they have in common. The first one, electric vehicles. Why are electric vehicles important to highlight here? This is literally just my talking. This is me just putting things out there. There's nothing to confirm this. I'm just adding this to the conversation, to the discourse. And that is, electric vehicles are quiet. Unlike a ICE or an internal combustion engine, you can hear it, the exhaust and all these other things. Can't hear an electric vehicle until it's too late. Even when the first people are starting to be impacted, that doesn't have the same, your mind isn't tuned to that. So that's just something that's out there. They accelerate. You could see there were some videos out there where the F-150 turns on a dime and then just accelerates down the street. Their acceleration is very good. Third point that I want to put out is that if, and we're going to see this in Vegas, if they do catch on fire, they're pretty much impossible to put out, which makes them a much better missile to enact destruction on people. And so we have that information right now. So let's get to this next story. Let's get to the other. So that's the first part. The second part that's very important to note is that both of these vehicles were rented via Turo, the car sharing app Turo. I've used the car sharing app Turo many times. Some things to know if you've never used it, because I tell people, oh, you should use it. I don't use it anymore. It's a different story. If you go on the rental app, you can look up a vehicle, you can put in your date, and then 7 or 8 times out of 10, if you're at an airport, you can just go up to the vehicle. There'll be a little lock on one of the windows, like a lock that you get looking at an open house. You punch in the code and the key comes out. Same thing that happens here. You punch in the code, the key comes out, and then you can get in the car and go. You don't need to talk to anybody. You take some pictures, you go, you put up on the app. There's no interaction. Very important to note, in both of these cases, they're probably left to be picked up. The person who rented the vehicle, which, by the way, I'm sure they feel terrible. They feel absolutely terrible that there was some kind of incident connected to their vehicle. I mean, that's got to be awful. So they were electric vehicles, and they were both used on the car sharing app Turo. Most likely, and this is just me explaining it, there's nobody else who has said this yet. It is the veil of not being able to talk to anybody. I can't say the word anonymity. Anybody else know how to say that? Let me know. You're anonymous. Yeah, you have credit cards and stuff like that. You can use burner ones, and you can use all these other kinds of things to mask identities. You can use shell corporations and different accounts so you don't know the person who's actually renting the vehicle. So for those poor people who actually rented the cars on Turo, I feel bad for them. That's an awful thing to have. But the next story that happened today, where people, my wife and I were sitting watching movies this afternoon because we both had the day off. And I'm like, yeah, well, there was an explosion outside the Trump Tower in Vegas, which is interesting because my wife and I, when we go to Vegas, we stay at the Trump Hotel. I've got a couple videos and pictures of me staying there over the years. My wife and I actually talked about in the fall of last year hey, should we go to Vegas for New Year's? Maybe we should go to Vegas for New Year's because we like going there. It's a lot of fun. We like the Trump Hotel, and we would, if we had chose, we would have been there during this week. Something very interesting to note. And since the third thing is the Trump Hotel doesn't have a casino in it. It's one of the few that doesn't. A good friend of mine who lives in Vegas said, hey, you can't pull cars up to casinos. They don't do that. And he's right. And the thing that makes the Trump different is that it's not a casino. So people drive up there, drop their stuff off and park, park their cars. Funny. The crazy thing is back when my wife and I, the last time we were there in 2020, they had barriers and they had all these other kinds of things. I'm surprised there weren't any barriers or anything there now, especially since Trump is going back into office. But we are showing right now the after effects. We're actually, there's videos of the explosion taking place. You're not going to see that here, but I will show you the video of the actual fire post the incident. I can't use it because the guy swears, but as you can see, usually there were barricades and things. This is the entrance to the Trump Hotel with this overhang. And yeah, last time my wife and I were there, they had barricades and they had all these other kinds of stuff. He doesn't own that whole building. He doesn't. Okay. That's interesting. Good to know. But even still, when we were there back in 2020, they had barricades and things that were up there. But that's the mall that's right across the street. And then he zooms in to actually see the vehicle on fire. Now, somebody correctly pointed out that Musk was really quick to jump out here and be like, oh, well, this is what happens and all these other kinds of things. Now, I guess with the Wi-Fi and the internal diagnostics that you can do with that. But Elon comes out and says that it was either a bomb in the back with some fireworks, which, a person that I trust said that's the lithium battery, the actual sparkles and things like that. But Musk says it is a bomb with maybe some fireworks or whatever the case may be. And then he comes out, and this is where Musk doesn't get the whole point. And I'm not trying to be mean on this one. I just don't think he can comprehend this. Musk says that the Cybertruck is the worst possible choice for a car bomb, as it is stainless steel armor can contain the blast better than any other commercial vehicles. Elon, it's not about the actual impact. It's not about the damage. It's about the message that is being sent, especially in light of, we don't know who did it, especially since, according to the reports, the person drove up, perished in the blast, and other people were injured as well. One person died. This is from Newsweek. One person died and 7 more were injured Wednesday after a Tesla Cybertruck explosion in front of President-elect Donald Trump's Vegas hotel, which was captured on video and shared on social media. Why does this matter? Tesla, car manufacturer, blah, blah, blah. They talk about a bunch of other things. But you have one person who died, and that was a person, apparently, according to reports, drove up, sat in the car, put his foot on the brake, which is weird. I guess he had to arm it. And then the vehicle exploded. So you have that. You have the symbolism of the Cybertruck, which is Elon I don't think this is, I'm not breaking any news here saying that this is the most controversial of the, of Tesla's vehicles, and really the symbol of Tesla at this point, because it's so divisive that, that being set on fire in front of the Trump building in Vegas, or the Trump Hotel in Vegas, sends a message to those two. Is it somebody who is extreme all the way on the right, who's angry about the H1B thing? I'm going to throw it out there. I don't think it is, but you can't eliminate anything until it's actually talked about. Could it be? Could it be some soyist, angry person on the left who's mad at Elon for helping Trump get elected? I don't know. But both were rented on Turo. Both were electric vehicles. Obviously, the fire department can't do anything with this vehicle right now. They just kind of have to start. They just have to wait until it burns out, because you can't put it out with regular water. So that's one thing that is very interesting at this point, trying to see that this vehicle went off, and the Vegas PD is never been, and we have somebody in Vegas. There's not a lot of info. This is what the people of Vegas, well, let's first go to CNN and then we'll go to what the police are at least telling us.
Possible terrorist act. Police say it took place at around 8:40 a.m. local time. There was one person inside the vehicle who died, and 7 other people suffered minor injuries. The FBI is involved in this investigation, and we are going to stay on top of the story and bring you updates as we
taking it slow, and we are going to make sure that we remain safe in our community. I just want to say to all of the people, at 8:40 a.m. Las Vegas time, we received a report of an explosion and a fire at the Trump Towers, the iconic hotel that you see behind me. We were told that a 2024 Cybertruck pulled up to the front of the hotel, and in fact I can tell you it pulled right up to the glass entrance doors of the hotel. We saw that smoke start showing from the vehicle, and then a large explosion from the truck occurs. There is one deceased individual in the Cybertruck, and I don't know whether it's a male or female at this time. We are investigating a number of leads, and I'm not prepared to release any of that information to you just yet. I can tell you that there are 7 victims right now that sustained injuries from the explosion. All of those have been reported to me at this point as minor injuries. We'll continue to hope and pray for their immediate recovery. Also, we're very well aware of what has happened in New Orleans with the event that occurred there and the number of victims there and the additional IEDs. So as you can imagine, with an explosion here on our iconic Las Vegas Boulevard, we are taking all of the precautions that we need to take to keep our community safe. We're looking for secondary devices. We're taking it slow, and we are going to make sure that we remain safe in our community. I just want to say to all of the people here in Las Vegas, there does not appear to be any further threat to our community here now. And if that changes, obviously you will hear directly from me to provide any update to you. I anticipate later this afternoon to give you much more information on what we are finding out in this investigation. But obviously a Cybertruck, the Trump Hotel, there's lots of questions that we have to answer as we move forward. With that, I will tell you that our entire law enforcement, first responder community is here and present and working on all of the issues that we have here, one of which is the FBI. I'm going to turn that over to ASAC Jeremy Schwartz to give a couple of comments, and then immediately after that, Deputy Chief Tommy Touchstone from the Clark County Fire Department to give you a couple updates as well.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jeremy Schwartz, currently the acting special agent in charge for the FBI here in Las Vegas. First and foremost, I just want to say, our hearts and prayers go out to the community. Even though there's only one deceased victim at this time, something like this happens in the city, and it has an effect on our people here in the community. So we recognize that, and we're here to do everything that we can to support this investigation, to jump on board with our Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department partners, which we've already done. I know you're looking for a lot of answers, and ideally right now we just don't have a lot of answers. We're going to continue to work as hard as we can over the next 24 to 48 hours to hopefully get more to you. But this time we've got a lot of questions, and we've got to figure that out before we can actually get anything out to you right now. So again, we're here, we're deploying resources, and we will continue to.
All right, I'm going to bring this one down, guys, because this is actually outdated. I just got rid of myself instead of the actual video. Let's see. We're going to get rid of these guys. We're going to bring in the latest. We actually have video of the Cybertruck and what was in the back. Take a look.
What I also would like you to pay attention to on that video, as you see that, It looks like the
That's the back of the Cybertruck. They were finally able to get it to, go out. So they're able to put out the fire on it. And so that's what it looks like there. People are still going with the narrative of, well, this was such a bad vehicle to use. A lot of, and maybe it is. I'm still going with the idea that it was used to send a message. I could be proven wrong. I kind of hope I did. I kind of hope I am proved wrong. I kind of hope I am. So let's take a look at the back.
I also would like you to pay attention to on that video, as you see that, it looks like the exterior of that truck is completely intact as it sits there. The fact that this was a cyber truck really limited the damage that occurred inside of the valet, because it had most of the
looks like a lot of fireworks back there.
Out. In fact, if you look on that video, you'll see that the front glass doors at the Trump hotel were not even broken by that blast, which they were parked directly in front of. You can see that in the video there.
Yeah, so very interesting to see what's going on as far as the actual damage from the Cybertruck. But what we actually do know is where this guy came from. We actually do know that this guy is not a resident of Vegas. And we know that because we have this report here. Here it is. From KRDO, man who drove Cybertruck into Trump Hotel in Las Vegas may have come from Colorado Springs, which is very interesting. As detectives continue to investigate the circumstances surrounding the explosion of a Tesla Cybertruck outside the Trump Hotel in Vegas, ABC News has received word that the man behind the wheel may have come from Colorado Springs. This driver was killed in the blast while several others sustained minor injuries. Now detectives are urgently working to determine who was behind the wheel and what their motive could have been. Now, the idea here, too, is if you've ever seen, I know there are videos out there of Teslas catching on fire, especially in Florida after the hurricane, when the salt water impacts the battery, and, lithium batteries and salt water don't go together, so they blow up. So you have that. The video of those vehicles going up, they didn't explode, which was it's something that people need to take into account. They don't explode. They catch on fire and they burn out. The explosion here is what a lot of people are trying to really get their head around and trying to figure out, hey, what is behind the actual explosion that took place here? So ABC News has confirmed that the person who rented the truck arrived in Vegas this morning after setting out from Colorado Springs, December 30th. Which, first of all, that's a hell of a drive in the Cybertruck. I don't know how the heck they got down there, but maybe it was the can of gas, right? The Cybertruck was rented from the car rental company Turo, which I've already talked about. According to ABC News, the same company was used. Yeah, we already got that. The explosion would happen around 8:40. Is currently investigated as a possible act of terrorism. Officials briefed on the probe say investigators have found, in addition to fireworks-style mortars, at least one gas tank and fuel in the truck, reinforcing the possibility that the explosion was intentional. So there's a lot more to say that this was an intentional act. This was an intentional act by somebody looking to make a message. There is a lot of fear right now about, is there a terror cell that has been activated? These are questions that are being brought online. I don't know if I subscribe to that. Is there people working together in the Southeast, in the Louisiana area and the Houston area to possibly make people afraid? Could be. I'm not going to dismiss it. I'm not going to dismiss it at all. But the fact of the matter is, you have a lot of things that have worked in conjunction right now. You've had a DOJ that has really had blinders on when it's come to specific groups in these United States, white Americans, right? Every time we've seen terror alerts, it's always been right-wing militias and the Proud Boys and this fake Patriot Front that's always seems to pop up in random towns, like 15 guys all wearing khaki pants and the same jacket. And it's always like, oh, these are the Nazis you got to be afraid of. Yet anybody, doesn't matter if they're Muslim or white or whatever, who is on the the radar is seemingly allowed. And this goes whether they're mass casualty events at schools. What's, the Bart Simpson line? Hey, say the line. The FBI, he was on our radar. And I am not. Let me say this right now. I am not in favor of a pre-crime society. Not in favor at all of a pre-crime society where we are looking to arrest people beforehand. Nope, not even close. I think a more armed and vigilant society is what is actually needed here. So the entire idea that's happening, and we have an update here that SWAT operations is underway at the Houston home of the New Orleans attacker that's taking place. Several people, including children, have just been pulled out of the home by police per local media. That's from Nick Soter on X. If you follow him, he's been pretty good on this stuff as well. But Fox Houston has been bringing that up. But yes, we have more things that are taking place. And the fact is, there's a lot of uncertainty, and that's where leadership is needed.
But I also would like...
Oh, wrong one. That's where leadership is actually needed and desired. And I think we're just not having it. We're not finding it. And it's making a lot of people nervous. And this is the tweet that I just read out, that you have these SWAT operations that are taking place in Houston. And that's what's giving rise to this idea that there's some kind of cell that's going on here. And it's unsettling, which goes back to what? The idea that you are your own first responder, that you are responsible for you. And I'm kind of talking to the men out here more particularly than anybody else, that you are responsible. I don't know why I just went back to like 1999 as far as my internet connection. I guess, since I have 500 people watching, my computer's going to decide that right now is the time to crap the bed. So thank you to that. I'm really talking. Let me get rid of this one here. Maybe that'll help a little bit. I guess not. Right now I'm doing there it is. I think so. Yeah. Catching up. I'm really talking to the men out there, especially leaders of households. You are responsible for your family. You are responsible for those who are under your care, meaning you need to be your own first responder. You need to be able to take care of them. You need to be able to defend them. You need to be more aware than everybody else of what's happening in and around your areas. Simply because if you're not paying attention, they're going to be the ones who are going to be impacted by it. So you have the terror. It is a terror attack that took place in New Orleans. They're going to be very crafty. They're going to take as much time as possible to announce if the Trump terror attack or the Trump attack in Vegas was a terror attack, because they're not going to want the idea of multiple cells being activated. Is it ironic that you're having multiple attacks on prominent events in the month leading up to, in 4 days or 5 days, they're going to try and certify the 2024 election results? There's a lot of, you got Jamie Raskins and you got all these moronic Democrats running around saying, we're not going to certify that election. Then you have this kind of stuff happening. Then you have January 20th. That's going to take place after that. That's true as well. That you're also dealing with public relations. That's a very good point. Las Vegas, we still don't know about Stephen Paddock. And if you know about Vegas, you know what I'm talking about. October 1st, at the country music concert. I think it was 2016, 2017? I think it was 2017. October 1st, 2017. And the stuff in Vegas, the police department in Vegas is not exactly the one you want to be relying on. There's plenty of documentaries and plenty of information about that out there. So they're going to walk that as slowly as possible for their own reasons. especially for, I'm sure the feds are, if you want to take a little bit of time to release that information, let the news cycle move on to the next subject. I'm sure they're more than happy to do so in that regard. It's going to be interesting tomorrow because they're going to do the Sugar Bowl tomorrow. They're going to have that at the Mercedes-Benz Bowl Superdome or whatever it's the Superdome in Louisiana. My question to you is, what happens if the terror cell is still operating in New Orleans tomorrow? Because we haven't gotten any real feedback on what's going on there. We know at 3:48 Central Time this afternoon, another bang went off. There's a lot of rumors going around that the FBI is sending in their top tactical units to go into New Orleans. Nobody's talking about that except a couple people on X. They're tweeting this out saying, "Hey man, we're tracking these flights and these are these people, this, that, and the other thing." Nothing's been confirmed on that end. Not that means anything because they're not going to really be the first ones to tell you that. But the whole thing, so it's going to be interesting. What's happening all around in two different places, and all we can do, and all I'm doing, I'm having this conversation with you, and I appreciate you guys hanging out with me, is having this conversation, really discussing what's going on the 1st of January, 2025. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. If you're following me on the on X, please give me a follow. So yeah, there's people who are watching Air Force flights. They're like, hey, there's a couple 747 E4s. They're in the air. Where are they going? I don't put a lot of stock in those. Not that it means anything, what I feel. But there's a lot of things that are making people nervous because what? The myth, and that's what it is. The myth that you are going to be protected by police, right? And this conversation kind of came up after what happened in New York on the subway. Are you going to be protected by police? Are you going to be protected by your government? Are you going to be who's going to protect you? Especially as society seems to be coming apart at the seams. A lot of people feel that way. Nobody is. And I'm sorry to say that, because that's not what you probably are tuning in to hear. But you're on your own. Maybe you're lucky you're in a good community that has, you have good neighbors and you kind of all understand what the deal is. Maybe you have a good family unit and you guys know what the deal is there. Who knows? But what we're looking at is a lot of people who are being very nervous, especially in this transition period. 5 days from now, starting on the Epiphany, the Feast of the Epiphany, January 6th, 2025, there's supposed to be a peaceful transition of power. There's supposed to be movement through there. It's kind of like the shift change. A lot of things happen on the shift change. Are we seeing things happen during this shift change? I don't know. I can clearly say I do not know. And I'm not trying to tell you who anything more than what is being presented here on Rickcast. So that's all I got right now as far as what happened in Vegas, what happened in New Orleans. New Orleans is still active. They went to the guy's home in Houston. They pulled some people out there. They're initiating SWAT operations. New Orleans right now, the FBI is crawling all over that place. They haven't declared the scene safe. And even if it is, would you believe it? That's another sad commentary. Even if it is declared safe, would you trust them? You have the Sugar Bowl, which you have, people from across the country going to see Notre Dame versus Georgia, major college event happening there. And then a couple, in February, you have the Super Bowl, you have Mardi Gras, you have a lot of other things that are going to take place in New Orleans. How are they going to get their act together there? A lot of questions happening right now. A lot of people are nervous, and I get it. And I, in some ways, a little nervous too, because we are only responsible in what we have to. What do I think about tomorrow? Dumb to happen. the actual game? That's a great question. That is a really great question. I don't know. From a security standpoint, you don't want anything to happen until it's declared safe. I think it was a wise move to push the game off tonight. You know, the bodies are still out in the streets in New Orleans right now as the investigation takes place. I don't think you can have the game tonight. I think, honestly, I would probably postpone it. They have to have some kind of certainty. They can't just be like, it's postponed until further notice. There's TV contracts and things like that that have to be rearranged. As morbid as that sounds, that's the things that have to get taken into account. But I wouldn't have the game, though there is precedent for it, because during the manhunt for the second Zarnoff back after the Boston Marathon, hockey games took place. All kinds of things took place while the hunt was going on for him. So, you know, it's not uncommon to have them take place. I would just think if you're going, you would, you know, be prepared for a longer wait than normal, because that whole place is going to, you know, search down and all other kinds of things, even worse than before. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that moves going forward. That's a great question. If the Golden Girls were in charge, I'd feel a lot better about it being safe to hold the game. I agree. Yeah, your police chief, who's almost hit 3 digits on the age bracket, probably not the most reassuring one. Your mayor, who's from California, probably not somebody that you really feel really safe on that. So it is one of those things. So I want to move to one more story. We're not going to cover the box office preview. I'll try to put that in a video tomorrow, maybe, if I have some time off at work during the day, but I don't think we're going to get to that one tonight. I do want to cover this last story real quick, because it has to be covered this weekend. This weekend, Trump was asked about the H1B drama between Musk and the Twitterites and everything else that was taking place. And he had a response that a lot of people were not very happy with. And is that, let's see. I think the difference now from earlier, that what seems like a second attack, it seems that the two attacks were together. Yeah, I mean, they're both electric vehicles taken from Turo. It's a really good point. And it's really hard to get around that. At what point are you doing coincidence? What point is just something too coincidental for the human mind to really take? But I know for a fact that using something like Turo gives you more room to play with, because you're not dealing with you're not going to a Hertz and giving an address and a phone number and all these other things that you have to give when you're renting a car from there. You can make all that stuff up, or you can use a PO box, or you can use somebody else's stuff that's not really, as long as it initially passes the background check, then they don't care. All right, here's the last story. I do want to cover this real quick just to get this on everybody's radar. So Trump was asked about the H1B visas and the whole tiff between MAGA and Musk, and this is what he had to say. I can only share 10 videos at once. Okay, I guess I got to get rid of a couple. I've never really shared this many videos, so let's see. Let's get one more in here. I'm going to get it in here. I really want to talk about this story, so I'm going to get it.
Why'd you change your mind on H1B visas, sir?
I didn't change my mind. I've always felt we have to have the most competent people in our country. We need competent people. We need smart people coming into our country. And we need a lot of people coming in. We're going to have jobs like we've never had before.
But sir, you said you changed your position. You plan to go to the Carter.
So 2016, Trump had the position of H1Bs were a scam and they needed to be removed, and, you know, American jobs for American workers and all this other kind of stuff. And after Musk kind of had his moment and made his things known, people were like, oh, well, Trump said he was behind he was behind the American worker. And I believe that to a point. Two things I want to make known before I head on out of here. The first one is Trump's, you're not a billionaire by not, taking advantage of the system. Trump has made it known that he's taken advantage of the systems before, no matter what they are. So he takes advantage of them. I don't hold that against him. You think he's going to go against the idea that he's walking that tightrope? And I think the way he's going to try and skate around it is, I'm going to make so many jobs, it doesn't matter. I think he's going to try and fall back on that. Like, I'm going to create so many jobs, you won't even notice. But yeah, the Trump hotels use H1Bs. If you're a business perspective, and it's available, why would, the guy Lucas from T-Rex Arms has positions. He has stuff listed on the H1B as well. Thank you, Steph. Actually, it's probably the best. Some say it's the best, some say it's the worst, but it's actually pretty good. Thank you. If you have the ability to use H1Bs, you'd be a fool not to. You would all have to sit in a position of a business owner, a $1 billion business or something like that. And that's the whole thing I've been making with the people, the pro Elon people who have agreed with Vivek and like, oh yeah, American culture sucks. We just need to fix the schools, right? That was a big thing some of your con grifters were saying. We just need to fix the schools, guys. Well, even if you fix the schools and you don't get rid of the H1Bs, let's say you have these amazing, Tiger Mom inspired kid. Let's say you have 100,000 Viveks now, right? Because that's who he wants, because he's the nerd and he just wants everybody to emulate him. So you have 100,000 Viveks now ready to be hired, and the H1Bs still exist. They're not going to hire the Viveks. They're going to hire the H1Bs, because a business, even if they're not as skilled, they're always going to go to the lowest common denominator if they can save money. That's the whole thing that people with the H1Bs are screaming about. It's not a racist thing or all this other kind of stuff. In the end, it's an ability for these companies to undercut Americans, and it's approved, and it's big government with big corp working together. That's the part. It's not about the schools or the culture or not watching Friends or any of this other stupid stuff. It was about governments giving businesses the ability to undercut workers, and it needs to be fixed. And people were hoping that Trump would not side with the billionaire Elon Musk, who came in and infused a ton of money and a ton of enthusiasm into the Trump campaign, right? So Musk essentially bought his way into that media outlet that is the Trump MAGA sphere. And so he gets to control a lot of that conversation. He controls the conversation on X. He controls that. We saw the de-check marking and demonetization of people. So Trump was not going to go against Musk. I know there was a lot of people that were hoping that Trump was going to go against Musk. Guys, that's just wishful thinking. Yep, Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel, the guy who owns JD Vance, he plucked JD Vance out of nowhere and groomed him, not in the groomy, like, gross way, but he groomed him back when the word was not perverted to be this political figure. So yeah, Peter Thiel has a hand in it too. The tech bros want the H1Bs. Trump, here's one thing I'll try to say, and it's kind of like the Speaker Johnson thing. The reason why Trump came out and wanted Speaker Johnson is he doesn't want to deal with infighting. He just wants to get the ground. He wants to get in the ground floor, get running, and get to work, right? I honestly feel like he just wants to do that. He wants to get to work, and he wants to get after this whole thing. He doesn't want to be bogged down with infighting. He doesn't want to be bogged down with, trying to separate the tech bros from the MAGA boys and all this other kind of stuff. He doesn't want to deal with any of it. So he's just going to back Elon, and, everybody's just got to deal with it. We'll move on. We'll deal with it later. I back Elon. Elon's got the money. Elon's got the platform. He's my guy. We're going to go on to it. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of money in that cabinet. There's going to be a lot of money in that cabinet. So it's not by accident. You are right on that one. 100%. So I just want to get that out there. That happened over the weekend before everything else went to haywire as it did today. But yeah, the whole thing is Trump's going to back the people that helped him get elected. Are you shocked by it? When you take a step back, are you really shocked by that? You shouldn't be. And it's not because Trump hates the working class. I actually think Trump is probably one of the few guys in those positions. If you talk to people that work at his buildings and stuff, they love the guy. There's been a lot. He's the closest you're going to get to a billionaire that actually cares about working people. He's not a messianic figure, but at the same time, he's not a guy that is going to be really, in the end, if his back is against the wall, he's going to go with the tech bros. And I'm going to just be as honest, and I'm not kissing the guy's butt, but I can see why. If you're like Trump MAGA war guy 152 on Twitter and you're mad that he didn't acknowledge you and your 500 followers, what are you doing, man? Like, really? How are you even trying to like make this a thing? So just because like Elon retweeted you or something like that. But so that's that. I'm not going to do the story on the box office preview. That's not appropriate for tonight. I don't like these. It looks like there's something else that's happening in Vegas right now. I'm not going to get into that. We'll see how that goes later on. I can update you guys on that tomorrow. Yeah, right. Bannon and Loomer are battling Musk. Yeah, infighting is to happen. I don't like Bannon, but I give him credit for at least stepping up and saying something when a lot of people ran and hid because they didn't want to make Trump mad and they didn't want to lose those Elon bucks. Your favorite right-wing grifter or whatever you want to call them were very quick to side with Musk because they didn't want to lose influence and they didn't want to lose money. And when you don't have either one, like myself, you don't have anything to lose. So you can pretty much say whatever you want. So there's that. All right, folks, I'm checking right now real quick. It doesn't look like anything that we haven't covered has been updated. So that's going to conclude my coverage tonight here on Rickcast. I will be back with you guys tomorrow, 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern here on Rickcast. Thank you all for hanging out with me. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell to be known when I go live. And once again, thank you for hanging out with me. I will see you all tomorrow. Please stay safe out there. And until the day where he can breathe fresh air, free Dexter Taylor.